Everyone says the same thing now. Women are leaving because men failed. It sounds heroic, empowering, clean, but here's the twist nobody warns you about. If walking away was the cure, happiness should follow. Yet for many women it doesn't, it shadows them. Different house, different bed, same restlessness. This isn't an attack, it's a diagnosis. When dissatisfaction survives the breakup, the cause can't be the relationship alone. Something internal is driving the pattern. And patterns are dangerous because they feel invisible. Here's the uncomfortable question most videos avoid. What if leaving wasn't liberation, but misdirection? What if the real problem packed its bags first? Tonight, we're pulling apart a story culture profits from. We'll look at expectations, emotional wiring, and why freedom sometimes feels emptier than the cage it replaced. Stay with me, because once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it, and it changes every decision after. Here's where dark psychology quietly enters the room. Dissatisfaction rarely announces its true source. Instead, it looks for a convenient villain. And the closest target is always the person beside you. When a woman feels that persistent sense of something's missing, her brain needs an explanation. The mind hates ambiguity, so it assigns blame. The man becomes the symbol, not because he caused the feeling, but because he's available to absorb it. Psychologists call this misattribution. The emotion is real. The conclusion is flawed. This is why leaving often feels euphoric at first. Relief isn't happiness, it's pressure release. Dopamine spikes. Friends cheer. Social media applauds. The story feels complete, but dopamine fades. And when it does, the same dissatisfaction resurfaces. Only now, there's no one left to blame. And that's when the real panic begins. Because if it's not him, then what is it? Here's the pattern most people never connect. When the relationship ends, the dissatisfaction doesn't disappear. It migrates. First into work, then friendships, then mental health. Different arenas, same emotional residue. Dark psychology calls this pattern persistence. When the root cause is internal, changing environments only changes the wallpaper. The feeling stays. This is why many women report something unsettling after leaving. The job feels hollow. Friends feel draining. Independence feels loud. The freedom they wanted starts demanding answers it can't give. Notice something important. If men were the sole cause, relief should be concentrated in one area, romantic life. But instead, dissatisfaction spreads everywhere. That's not coincidence. That's diagnostic. It's like changing rooms in a burning building instead of putting out the fire. The smoke follows, and when every door leads to the same feeling, the mind starts whispering something terrifying. What if the problem came with me? That thought changes everything. Now we touch the nerve most people avoid, baseline emotional sensitivity. Some minds experience dissatisfaction louder, longer, and more intensely. Not as weakness, but as wiring. Psychology shows women, on average, score higher in emotional reactivity and rumination. Feelings echo. They replay. They don't fade quietly. And when discomfort lingers, the mind assumes something must be wrong externally. Here's the dark twist. When you're wired to feel more, you're also wired to expect more. More connection, more meaning, more fulfillment. So when reality delivers something ordinary, even stable, it registers as failure. A man sees good enough and relaxes. A woman sees good enough and asks, is this all? Same life, different internal math. And here's the trap. If dissatisfaction is interpreted as a warning signal instead of background noise, every calm moment starts feeling suspicious. That's when peace begins to look like a mistake. This is where expectations become the silent executioner. Dark psychology teaches one brutal rule. Reality never competes with fantasy, it only disappoints it. Modern women are raised on a promise that sounds beautiful and destroys quietly. You can have it all. Passion, security, purpose, romance, excitement delivered by one man consistently, forever. When that promise lodges in the mind, anything less feels like betrayal. So when a relationship becomes calm instead of electric, stable instead of thrilling, the brain interprets safety as stagnation. Dopamine drops, anxiety rises, and the question appears, am I settling? Here's the trick. Settling used to mean accepting misery. Now it means accepting normal. And once normal becomes unacceptable, no relationship survives long. Humans cannot compete with a fantasy designed to keep you dissatisfied. The most dangerous part? The fantasy never argues back. Here's where the narrative collapses under its own weight. If men were truly the problem, removing men should fix everything. But the data is unsettling. It points elsewhere. Look at relationship outcomes. Lesbian couples, no men involved, have the highest breakup rates. Gay male couples, also no women involved, have the lowest. That's not ideology. That's pattern recognition. Dark psychology calls this variable correlation. When one variable consistently predicts instability, you don't ignore it because it's uncomfortable. This doesn't mean women are flawed. It means dissatisfaction expresses itself differently, depending on emotional processing styles. When two people with high emotional sensitivity pair up, friction compounds faster. Feelings escalate. Conflicts intensify. Thresholds shrink. Meanwhile, two men tolerate imperfection longer. They don't need the relationship to validate their inner world every day. Function beats feeling. And once you see this, one terrifying possibility emerges. What if dissatisfaction isn't caused by who you're with, but by how you interpret life itself? Here's the moment everything turns inward. When the relationship is gone and the silence settles, the mind loses its favorite distraction. There's no partner to blame, no argument to dissect, just you and the feeling that followed you anyway. Dark psychology calls this ego, dissonance, the pain of realizing the decision didn't deliver the promised relief. The brain hates admitting error, so it delays the truth. It says, I just need more time. Maybe I chose the wrong person. Maybe I just need a new environment. So the cycle repeats. New job, new city, new people, same internal tension. And late at night, when stimulation fades, a dangerous question surfaces. Why does nothing fix this? That question terrifies, because it points to a place culture never taught her to look inside patterns, expectations, and emotional habits formed years ago. Once that door cracks open, there's no going back to simple answers. Now comes the phase nobody posts about, the comparison phase. This is where dark psychology sharpens the knife. She sees her ex again, maybe online, maybe through friends. He looks fine, stable, even happy. And that image detonates something deep. Because if he's thriving without her, the story breaks. The mind scrambles to protect the ego. He changed. She's temporary. He'll regret it. But the discomfort lingers because another thought is fighting to surface. What if he wasn't the problem? This is cognitive collapse. The moment a belief system cracks. She didn't just leave a man. She left certainty. And now she has to face the possibility that she traded something real for something imagined. That's when freedom stops feeling empowering and starts feeling expensive. The bill has arrived and it's asking for accountability. Most people would rather rewrite history than pay it. Here's the brutal fork in the road. At this stage, there are only two paths. Most people take the first without realizing it. They double down. They decide the problem is commitment itself. They call it healing, but it's avoidance dressed as therapy. Dark psychology calls this identity preservation. Admitting the pattern means admitting agency, and agency means responsibility. So instead, the story shifts. I'm just not meant for relationships. I choose myself. I'm happier alone, even when the loneliness says otherwise. But a smaller group takes the second path. They sit with the discomfort. They study their emotional loops. They notice how dissatisfaction shows up everywhere, not just with men. They stop asking, who failed me? And start asking, what am I expecting life to feel like? This is where real power begins, not freedom from relationships, but freedom from illusions. The final twist, this choice decides whether the pattern ends or repeats forever. This is where the story actually ends, not with blame, but with clarity. The women who escape the cycle don't find a perfect partner. They find a different relationship with reality. They understand something dark psychology makes painfully clear. Happiness is not the absence of dissatisfaction. It's the ability to coexist with it without letting it run your life. They stop treating emotions like instructions. They learn the difference between weather and climate, between a bad week and a bad life. They mourn the fantasy they were sold and build meaning from what's real instead of what was promised. Some return to relationships wiser. Some don't, but none of them keep running. And here's the final truth most people never hear. A woman who is dissatisfied everywhere will be dissatisfied anywhere. Until expectations change, locations, partners, and freedoms won't. Peace isn't found by leaving the room. It's found by understanding why the room never felt quiet. If this resonated, ask yourself the hard question before making irreversible choices.